Hello friends, let's take a look at the US portfolio of one of the most famous investors, Mohnish Pabrai. We will see what changes he made to his investments in the last quarter, what he currently owns, and we will look at the history of all those investments to learn how Monish is actually investing. Because one thing is what investors say, how they talk about investing and their strategy, and sometimes their actions can be completely different. So let's learn from the actions and not words. He is an incredibly concentrated investor. Currently, he owns only 3 stocks in his US portfolio. We also know that he has a number of investments abroad, in India and mainly in Turkey, but because he is not obliged to disclose them in his 13F filings, we don't have all the data we would like to have. So, before we jump into his US portfolio, let's just mention one company that we know that he currently owns, and it is Reysas. It is a Turkey-based logistics and transportation company specializing in warehousing, distribution, and supply chain solutions. It operates an extensive network of storage facilities, railway transportation services, and real estate investments. It is a family-run business, and Monish owns around 30% of the company. As far as we know, that is his biggest investment. And in Q4 2024, he sold around 1.7% of it. Okay, so now let's take a look at his US investments. So let's open our smart money portfolios, which you can get access to by becoming a Patreon, and let's choose Monish from this growing list of great investors. So, as we can see, his entire portfolio is worth $253 million. Last quarter, he received $285,000 as dividends, and the value of the portfolio went up by $6.5 million, even though he was mainly selling his shares. And he currently has only 3 investments, and when we go down here, we can see that they are pretty evenly divided. But let's start with those 2 companies that he sold completely in Q4 2024. First, Danaos Corporation. It is a company that owns and rents out large container ships to transport goods across the world. As we can see, he closed this position for just over $4 million, and it was an extremely short investment. He bought it in Q3 2024 for around $86 and sold it probably with a very small loss. But he also received very nice dividends of over $37,000. So all in all, he could have made some money here, but nothing major. The other company that he sold completely was Arch Resources. It was a company that produced and sold coal for making steel and generating electricity. Now, this is actually a very interesting story because last quarter, Arch Resources merged with Consol Energy to create Core Natural Resources. And Monish owned shares of not only Arch Resources but also of Consol Energy. So with this merger, he could get shares from both sides. But instead, he decided to keep his shares of Consol Energy but sell all of his shares of Arch. Now, why did he do that? We can only speculate, but probably he didn't want this new company to make up more than 25% of the portfolio. Instead, he preferred to invest in some other companies. But we will get to that in a minute. So as we can see, he closed this position and got almost $4.3 million. And he bought his first shares of Arch in Q3 2023 for around $170. He was buying and selling shares every quarter, but when the price hit around $150, he really made it a big investment, owning 392,000 shares. So this position was valued at around $60 million. But the price kept on going down, and in the next 2 quarters, he sold all of his shares. Now, this does not look like a very profitable investment, but let's not forget that Monish also got a lot of dividends from this company. In Q2 2024, he received over $435,000. So, really not bad. Okay, and now let's take a look at the 3 companies that are still in his portfolio. And the first one is Core Natural Resources, so the company that was created by merging Arch Resources and Consol Energy. It makes up 25% of the portfolio and is valued at just under $63.5 million. Last quarter, he received $148,000 as dividends, and the value of this position went down by over $17 million. Now, it went down because he sold 22.8% of it. So not only he sold all of his shares of Arch Resources, but after the merger, he also sold the shares of this new company. It is going to be interesting to see, will he keep it or will he get rid of it altogether in the coming quarters? So he bought his first shares in Q2 2023 for around $70. But of course, then it was called Consol Energy. And we see a similar story to Arch Resources. He is constantly making small changes to this position while the price fluctuates. In Q4 2024, the price was well over $100, so it is definitely a good investment for Monish, especially that we also see some dividends here. Nothing extraordinary, but altogether we got well over $500,000 for dividends. His second biggest position is Warrior Met Coal. It is a company that produces high-quality coal used for making steel. So they concentrate on metallurgical coal, and that is a very important thing to remember. Because the main difference is that metallurgical coal is used for making steel, while energy coal or thermal coal is used for producing power. Now, the world is slowly moving away from thermal coal, but so far there is no real substitute for met coal. It is essential for steel production. And as we can see, this position makes up 36.5% of his portfolio and is valued at around $92 million. He received a dividend of $136,000 last quarter, and the value of this investment went up by over $47.8 million. Now, the reason for that is an incredible investment. He added 144% to this position last quarter. We can see on the graph here that when the price fell to under $55, he decided to take advantage of it and add this 144%. He bought his first shares in Q4 2023, but only after this recent price drop, he made it a substantial position. So when we choose here those 3 companies that he sold shares of, we get $25.5 million. So that is still over $20 million less than his investment. So that is some bold move. We can see a lot of conviction here. And he also got some dividends here, but as it is with cyclical companies, the dividends also may vary from quarter to quarter, and sometimes, like in Q2 2024, they may vary quite a lot. And his biggest US position is Alpha Metallurgical Resources. It is yet another company that produces high-quality coal used for making steel. So we have only mining companies here. Okay, this company makes up 38.5% of the portfolio. It is valued at $97.5 million. No dividend last quarter, and the value of this investment went down last quarter by $15.7 million, even though he added to this position 1.6%. So he bought his first shares in Q2 2023 for around $164. In half a year, the price doubled and he sold some shares. He bought them back when the price was down again to around $280 in Q2 2024. But at the end of Q4 2024, the price went all the way down to $200. So he's most probably still up on this investment, but not by much. Also, as we can see, the company stopped paying dividends in 2023. So that is the portfolio of Mohnish Pabrai. There are a number of things that really stand out to me here. One, the concentration of the portfolio is absolutely incredible. But not only because of 3 companies, but also because all of them are in the same industry. So this is basically a $253 million bet on the coal industry. That aligns very nicely with Warren Buffett's teaching that when you see a great opportunity, you should invest big in it. And the last thing is that because it is a very cyclical industry, and as we can see, Monish is not actually following a script of buying great companies and holding them forever, like, for example, his friend Guy Spier is, I have a feeling that this portfolio is very temporary. As soon as Monish will think that we are somewhere near the top of the cycle, he will most probably sell all of his shares and just move on to some other idea. Now, that is not a kind of investing that I find especially appealing. I believe that Guy Spier's, Warren Buffett's, Charlie Munger's approach is better because it is hard enough to find one great investment. But finding them every 2 years is just extremely hard. But also, it is not taking advantage of the compounding effect that starts to do its magic after many years of just owning a stock and doing nothing. But it is very important to also point out that Monish can do this $250 million bet on coal because he also has other international investments. And we know that he is holding around 30% of Reisas since 2019. So there are investments that are constant, and there are other bets that can be a bit more aggressive or just follow a different strategy. And that is an interesting approach. If you enjoyed this video, then you will really like the analysis of Norbert Lu's portfolio, who is one of the most mysterious investors on Wall Street. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.